I worked 10 hours that day. Just like every other day. Nothing felt unusual. I even texted my wife on my way home. Need anything from the store? No reply. I didn't think much of it. Until I reached my own house. I pulled out my key. Slid it into the lock. And it didn't fit. I tried again. Still nothing. Then I noticed something on the door. A fresh new lock. Completely changed. And a printed paper stuck right beside it. This property is under new management. Contact tenant services. I actually laughed. Because I thought it was a mistake. Some confusion. Some prank. But then I looked through the window. And I saw her. My wife. Standing inside my house. Watching me. And she smiled. Not nervous. Not guilty. Confident. Like I was the one who didn't belong there. That's the exact moment I realized. Something was very wrong. Because she didn't just lock me out of the house. She thought she had taken it from me. What she didn't know was that the name on the deed was still mine. And in the next 24 hours, she was about to learn exactly who she had locked out. The house I built, but was locked out of. The first time I ever saw that house. It was empty. Just bricks, dust, and broken tiles. Nobody wanted it. The roof leaked. The walls were cracked. Even the neighbors said it was a bad investment. But I saw something else. A future. I bought it when I was 29. Working 2 jobs. Sleeping barely 4 hours a night. Construction site in the morning. Delivery job at night. Every single paycheck went into this house. Not luxury. Not decoration. Just survival first. Then slowly. Progress. New windows. New flooring. Fresh paint. I built it piece by piece. Like it was my own body. Years later, when I met Nadia. The house was already livable. Not perfect. But mine. When we got married, she moved in. She called it our home. I believed her. At that time. Because love makes you share things you shouldn't. Even facts. At first, everything felt normal. We decorated together. Chose curtains. Painted walls. Built routines. People said we looked perfect. A stable couple. Successful. Calm. But nobody sees the slow shift. The way tone changes before words do. The way respect disappears quietly. Before arguments even begin. It started small. You should be grateful I manage the house better than you. I know what makes this place feel like a real home. I laughed it off. I always did. Until one day. She stopped laughing back. 6 months before everything collapsed. I noticed something strange. Mail started getting opened before I saw it. Bills were organized without asking me. Documents moved from drawers I had kept for years. When I asked about it, she said, "I'm just making things more efficient." Efficient. That word started showing up a lot. Then came the attitude shift. The way she spoke to me in my own kitchen. You don't really understand how homes work. You just pay for things. I actually run them. I remember staring at her. Trying to understand when we became you and me. Instead of just us. One evening, I tried to joke about it. This is still my house, you know. She didn't smile. Didn't react. Just kept cutting vegetables. Then she said something quietly. Without even looking at me. Let's see how long that stays true. I laughed awkwardly. But something in my chest tightened. Not fear. Not yet. Just confusion. The real change didn't come with arguments. It came with silence. Less conversation. More decisions made without me. Furniture moved. Locks replaced. Passwords changed. Even guests started being told things about me before I could even enter the room. Like I was slowly being removed from my own life. But I still didn't believe anything serious would happen. Because people don't just take your home. Right? At least, that's what I thought. Then came the day before everything broke. I left for work like normal. Kissed her goodbye. Grabbed my keys. Same routine. Same life. Nothing felt different. Nothing felt wrong. Until I came back. And saw the lock. New. Different. Wrong. And the paper on the door. This property is under new management. I remember standing there for a few seconds. Just reading it again and again. Waiting for it to change. Waiting for it to make sense. It didn't. I pulled out my key. Tried it once. Twice. Again. Nothing. That's when I realized something simple. But terrifying. I wasn't locked out of a house. I was locked out of my life. And then I saw her. Inside. Watching me through the glass. No panic. No explanation. Just calm. Controlled. Like she had been waiting for this moment. She walked closer to the window. Looked at me. And smiled. Not the smile of someone confused. But the smile of someone who believed they had already won. I stood there holding my keys. Not understanding how things had reached this point. How a house I built with my own hands could suddenly feel like I had never belonged in it. But what she didn't know was that this was not the end of my story. It was the beginning of hers collapsing. The call that changed everything. I was still standing outside the house. Like my feet had forgotten how to move. The paper on the door kept staring back at me. Under new management. I read it again. And again. Like repetition could somehow turn it into a joke. It didn't. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something inside me said, "Pick it up." I answered. "Hello?" A calm voice replied. "Mr. Harris?" "Yes. This is your lawyer. Are you at the property right now?" I looked at the house. "Yes." There was a short pause on the other side. Then he said something that made my grip tighten. "Don't move." I frowned. "What do you mean don't move?" His tone stayed controlled. "Whatever happens next, stay exactly where you are." For a second, I actually laughed. This is my house. I'm locked out of my own house. But he didn't laugh. That's when I realized. This wasn't confusion for him. It was expected. "Listen carefully," he continued. "Has anyone contacted you about ownership changes?" "No." "Has anything been signed recently?" "Not by me." Another pause. Then he said. "Then this is worse than I thought." My stomach dropped slightly. "Worse how?" He exhaled slowly. "Because someone has attempted to create a legal transfer of your property." I looked at the door again. My house. My key still in my hand. "This is impossible," I said. "I bought this house before my marriage." "I know," he replied. "That's why this is serious." Behind the glass, I saw movement. Nadia. She was watching me. Not worried. Not surprised. Just waiting. Like she knew I was on a call. Like she knew I was about to understand something. "What do I do?" I asked quietly. The lawyer replied immediately. "Do not enter the house under any circumstances." Why? Because if they've already changed the locks, then they're trying to build a case that you don't belong there anymore. I went silent. That sentence hit differently. Not emotionally. Legally. He continued. I need you to stay calm. I'm sending someone over immediately. Who? A property verification officer. I looked at the door again. I don't need verification. I need my house opened. That's exactly what we're going to establish. A pause. Then he added. And Mr. Harris? Yes? Don't argue with anyone inside. Not yet. The call ended. I stood there holding my phone. Feeling something I didn't expect. Not anger. Not panic. Something colder. Realization. The house wasn't just locked. It was being redefined without me inside it. I stepped back slightly from the door. And that's when I noticed something I hadn't seen before. A small security camera above the porch light. New. Not mine. Installed recently. Pointing directly at me. So this wasn't just a lock change. It was being watched. Recorded. Documented. Inside the house, Nadia finally opened the door a few inches. Not fully. Just enough for her voice to reach me. You're still here? Her tone wasn't emotional. It was casual. Like I was late to leave. Not locked out. I looked at her. This is my house. She tilted her head slightly. Is it? Same words again. But now. They didn't sound like doubt. They sounded like preparation. I think you should calm down, she said. I changed a few things while you were at work. A few things? I repeated. She smiled faintly. Just organization. Then she added something worse. You've been stressed lately. I thought I'd help take some pressure off you. That was the moment I realized something important. She wasn't acting like a thief. She was acting like a manager. Of a life she believed was already under her control. My phone vibrated again. Lawyer. A message this time. Stay there. Verification team is 18 minutes away. Do not let anyone inside persuade you to leave. I looked at it. Then at her. Then at the camera above me. Nadia stepped back slightly into the house. But before closing the door, she said softly. This doesn't have to be difficult. And the door shut. I stood there again. Outside. Still holding my keys. Still locked out. But now I understood something clearly. This wasn't about a lock. This was about ownership. And someone had already started rewriting my reality. The second claim. The sound of the car engine made me turn first. A black SUV stopped right in front of the house. Two men stepped out. One carried a briefcase. The other held a tablet. Professional. Neutral faces. The kind of people who don't take sides, only facts. Mr. Harris? The taller one asked. Yes. I'm from Property Verification Services. He looked at the house. Then at the new lock. Then at me standing outside like a stranger. I understand there's a dispute. I let out a short breath. There is no dispute. I own this house. He nodded slowly. Let's confirm that. We didn't go inside yet. They started outside. Checking records on the tablet. Cross-referencing documents. Typing quietly. No emotions. Just data. Inside the house, Nadia opened the curtain slightly. Watching. Still calm. Still confident. Like she was watching a process she already understood the outcome of. The officer finally spoke. Mr. Harris. You purchased this property in 2016? Yes. Before marriage? Yes. He nodded. That matches the primary registry. I felt a small relief. Finally. Something real. But then the second officer spoke. This is where it gets complicated. My stomach tightened again. Complicated how? He turned the tablet toward me. There is a secondary claim filed on this property. I frowned. A what? A legal occupancy claim. I looked at him. That makes no sense. I own it outright. He nodded. Yes. But someone has filed documentation suggesting shared residential rights and financial contribution over time. I immediately shook my head. That's not ownership. No, he agreed. But it can delay access restrictions and create legal ambiguity. From inside the house, I saw Nadia step closer to the window. She wasn't smiling now. Just listening. The officer continued. The claim was filed 48 hours ago. I froze. By who? He hesitated slightly. Then said. Your wife. The word didn't hit like anger. It hit like structure. Like something carefully planned. Not emotional. Strategic. I turned toward the house slowly. Nadia met my eyes. And for the first time, her expression changed slightly. Not fear. Not guilt. Something closer to certainty. So this is what this is, I said quietly. She didn't deny it. Didn't confirm it. Just watched me. The officer spoke again. This doesn't mean she owns the property. But it does mean she can legally remain inside until a court resolves the matter. I looked at him sharply. So I'm locked out of my own house, because of paperwork? He nodded. Temporarily, yes. Temporarily. That word felt insulting. The second officer added. However, there's something unusual. I turned. What? He tapped the screen. This claim includes a statement that you voluntarily vacated the property. I stared at him. I what? Inside, Nadia slowly stepped away from the window. Like she had already said everything she needed to say. The officer continued carefully. If that statement is accepted, it could shift temporary possession rights. I felt my jaw tighten. She's lying. He didn't react emotionally. Only professionally. That's what we're here to determine. Now it wasn't just a lock. It was a narrative. Someone was building a story where I didn't belong in my own home. I stepped closer to the door. Nadia. She finally opened it slightly again. Yes? Why are you doing this? She tilted her head. Doing what? Don't play games. Her voice stayed calm. I'm protecting stability. From what? She paused. Then said something that hit harder than anything before. From you coming and going like you still control everything. That sentence didn't feel like anger. It felt like belief. She genuinely thought she was correcting a problem. Me. The officers looked between us. They had seen this pattern before. Two versions of the same story. Both confident. Both conflicting. Only one could survive legally. The first officer finally said. We will need to secure temporary status until court review. I blinked. So I can't enter? He shook his head slightly. Not until this is resolved. Behind me, the street suddenly felt too quiet. Like the world had stepped back to watch. I looked at the house again. The place I built. The place I paid for. The place I believed was mine without question. Now being described like a shared argument. Nadia spoke softly from inside. You should have listened when I said we needed more balance. I stared at her. This isn't balance. She replied instantly. It is to me. And that's when I understood something dangerous. This wasn't just about ownership. It was about rewriting reality until even I started doubting it. The officer stepped back slightly. "We'll need time to review everything." I nodded slowly. But inside, something had already shifted. I wasn't confused anymore. I was focused. Because now I knew. This wasn't ending with paperwork. It was beginning with truth versus strategy. And I was done standing outside my own life. Someone helped her. Night had fully taken over the street. The house looked different now. Not because it changed, but because I wasn't allowed inside it anymore. Even the lights inside felt distant. Like they belonged to someone else. The verification officers were still parked outside. Talking quietly. Reviewing documents again. Trying to untangle something that clearly wasn't simple anymore. But I wasn't focused on them. My phone was in my hand. A new message. From my lawyer. She didn't act alone. I read it once. Then again. And then a third time. Because my brain refused to accept what my eyes were seeing. I called him immediately. He picked up quickly. "Talk to me." His voice was different now. Lower. More serious. "She filed a secondary claim," he said. "Yes, I know that part. There's more." I looked at the house through the window. Nadia was still inside. Moving slowly. Calmly. Like none of this was affecting her. "Someone inside the registry office approved it," he continued. That made me pause. "Approved it how?" He didn't answer immediately. That silence told me everything. Then he said it. "Fast-tracked validation." I frowned. What does that even mean? It means the system didn't just accept her claim. It prioritized it. Now I understood why this felt wrong from the beginning. This wasn't just a domestic dispute. It had speed. Structure. Protection. Who approved it? I asked. Another pause. Then he said. "I don't have a name yet. But I know the department." My grip tightened. "Which is?" "Municipal Property Oversight." I looked up at the house again. Something about it felt heavier now. Not physically. Strategically. Like there was a second layer I couldn't see. Inside, Nadia turned off a light. Then another. Slowly. Like she was closing the scene of a performance. My lawyer continued. "And there's something else." I exhaled sharply. "Just say it." "The affidavit she submitted includes a witness statement." I froze. "A witness?" "Yes." "And it's signed." My stomach dropped slightly. "By who?" There was a long pause on the call. Then he said. "Your neighbor." For a moment. I didn't react. Not because I wasn't angry. But because my brain needed time to process the betrayal logically. My neighbor. Someone who saw my life every day. Someone who greeted me every morning. Someone who knew whose house this was. I turned slowly toward the side fence. Their house was dark. No movement. No sign of life. But now I knew. They were part of this. Inside my house, Nadia stood still at the window again. She was watching me. But now it didn't feel like confidence anymore. It felt like coordination. Like she knew things I didn't. Because she wasn't acting alone. My lawyer spoke again. "We're escalating this. But I need you to understand something." I didn't answer. He continued. "This is no longer just about property." I already knew that. But hearing it confirmed made it worse. "Then what is it about?" I asked quietly. He replied. "Control of narrative." I looked at the house again. Control of narrative. That sentence stayed in my head. Because it explained everything. The lock. The claim. The witness. The fast approval. Someone wasn't trying to take my house. They were trying to redefine my place in it. To the system. To the neighbors. To the story itself. I took a step back from the gate. For the first time, I wasn't thinking about entering. I was thinking about exposing. Inside, Nadia finally opened the door fully. Just enough for her voice to reach me. This doesn't need to get messy. I looked at her. It already is. She shook her head slightly. No. You're just seeing it from your side. That line almost made me laugh. Almost. Because now I understood something clearly. This wasn't two sides of a story. It was one story being rewritten without me. My lawyer came back on the call. I'm sending someone else. Who? A senior investigator. I nodded slowly. What will they do? There was a pause. Then he said. They don't just verify ownership. They verify truth. I looked at the house one more time. The lights inside were almost completely off now. Except one. The kitchen. Where Nadia stood still. Watching. Waiting. And for the first time since this began, I wasn't confused. I wasn't shocked. I was ready. Because now I knew exactly what I was fighting. Not a lock. Not a claim. Not even a person. I was fighting a system that had already started believing a lie. The other property. The investigator arrived just before midnight. No sirens. No drama. Just a black car stopping quietly in front of the house like it had done this kind of thing 1,000 times before. A man stepped out. Older than the others. Calm eyes. Heavy briefcase. The kind of presence that doesn't ask for attention. But gets it anyway. I'm Inspector Raymond Cole, he said. His voice was steady. Professional. Controlled. He didn't look at me first. He looked at the house. Like he was reading it. Not just seeing it. Then he finally turned to me. You're Mr. Harris? Yes. He nodded once. I've reviewed the preliminary file on the drive here. I waited. Something in his tone told me this wasn't going to get simpler. He opened his briefcase on the hood of his car. Pulled out a folder. Thick. Overstuffed. Like it had history inside it. Not just documents. Before we go any further, he said, I need you to confirm something. I crossed my arms. What? He looked up. Is this the only property you jointly lived in with your wife? That question didn't feel random. It felt targeted. Yes, I said. Only this house. He didn't react immediately. Just flipped a page. Then said something that made the air feel colder. That's not what we found. I frowned. What do you mean? He turned the folder slightly toward me. There's another property linked to both your names. I shook my head. No. That's impossible. But even as I said it, I felt something shift inside me. A doubt I didn't want. He continued calmly. A second residential address. Registered 2 years into your marriage. And partially financed through a shared account. I blinked. Shared account? I never opened a shared property account. He looked at me. According to records, you did. That sentence hit differently. Not like an accusation. Like someone had opened a door I didn't know existed. Inside the house, Nadia turned off the kitchen light completely. Now only shadows remained inside. Inspector Cole continued. This property here, he tapped the file, is not the only asset being disputed. I stepped closer. What are you saying exactly? He met my eyes. I'm saying your wife has established a pattern. That word again. Pattern. Not mistake. Not confusion. Pattern. What pattern? I asked. He closed the file slightly. Gradual inclusion of her name into assets she did not originally own. A pause. Over time, legally strengthening her position. Now it started to make sense. Not emotionally. Strategically. This wasn't sudden. This wasn't desperation. This was long-term construction. I looked at the house again. At Nadia's silhouette behind the glass. And something uncomfortable clicked into place. She hadn't started today. She had started years ago. The inspector stepped closer. There's something else you should see. He handed me a second document. I took it. Looked down. And froze. It was a signature page. But not for this house. Not for the second property. For something older. Something I had completely forgotten. A refinancing agreement. From 5 years ago. Signed. By me. Or at least. A version of my signature I'd barely remembered authorizing. I looked up sharply. This isn't mine. The inspector didn't argue. Just watched me carefully. That's what we're trying to determine. Inside the house, Nadia finally opened the front door again. But only slightly. Her voice came out softly. You're going to turn this into something bigger than it is. I stared at her. You already did that. She didn't respond immediately. Just looked at the inspector. Then back at me. Then said something quietly. I was protecting myself too. That sentence landed differently. Because it wasn't denial. It wasn't attack. It was admission. The inspector raised a hand slightly. There's more. I looked at him. And for the first time tonight, I wasn't ready for what he was going to say. He opened the file again. Flipped to the final section. And said, this second property has already been transferred. I froze. What? He nodded slowly. 3 months ago. To a holding account. I felt my stomach drop. And the beneficiary is. He paused. Then looked at me. Not you. Silence. Not emotional. Not dramatic. Just absolute silence. I turned slowly toward the house. Nadia was watching me. No smile now. No confidence. Just stillness. Because now I understood. This was never about a lock. Never about a house. Never even about me being outside. This was about everything being quietly moved without me noticing. Piece by piece. Year by year. Until I was the only thing left outside the system. The inspector closed the file. This is no longer a single property dispute. He looked at me seriously. This is an asset mapping investigation. My phone buzzed. A message from my lawyer. Don't confront her yet. We need to trace the entire structure first. I looked at the house one last time. Then stepped back. For the first time. Not as someone locked out. But as someone finally starting to see the full map. The person I trusted most. The street was completely silent now. Even the distant traffic felt muted. Like the world had slowed down just to let the truth catch up. Inspector Cole didn't speak immediately. He simply turned the final page in the folder. Slow. Deliberate. Like he already knew I wasn't going to like what was coming next. There's one more connection, he said. I didn't answer. Because I could feel it coming. Something heavier than property. He tapped the document once. This is the coordinating signature. My eyes narrowed slightly. What does that mean? He looked at me directly. It means someone helped structure the entire filing process. A pause. Not just legally. Systemically. Inside the house, Nadia didn't move anymore. She wasn't watching me now. She was listening. Very carefully. Like she also didn't know how much was about to come out. The inspector turned the page toward me. I looked down. At first, I didn't recognize the name. Not immediately. Just letters. Then my brain connected them. And everything inside me went still. It was my financial advisor. The man I had trusted for almost a decade. The same person who handled my savings. My investments. My property paperwork. The same person who told me, year after year, everything is stable. I blinked once. Then again. That's not possible, I said quietly. Inspector Cole didn't react. It's documented. I shook my head. No. He wouldn't do this. But even as I said it, something uncomfortable rose in my chest. Not denial. Recognition. Cole continued calmly. Your wife didn't file everything alone. She coordinated with someone who understood your financial structure. He paused. Which made the process smoother. That word again. Smoother. Like this was all just logistics. Not betrayal. Inside the house, a light turned on again. Nadia had heard enough. Now she stepped closer to the door. But she didn't open it. Not fully. Just enough to speak. You're blaming people now, she said softly. I turned toward her. This isn't blame. This is evidence. She shook her head. You always think in systems. And I think in survival. That sentence hit differently. Not as an excuse. But as a worldview. Inspector Cole stepped slightly forward. Ma'am, you need to understand the seriousness of coordinated financial misrepresentation. Nadia looked at him. Then at me. Then said something that made everything colder. I didn't steal anything that wasn't already unstable. Silence. Even the inspector paused slightly. My voice came out lower now. So you admit it? She didn't answer directly. Instead she said. I adapted. That was the moment I understood something dangerous. She didn't see herself as wrong. She saw herself as responding to opportunity. Inspector Cole closed the file. This goes beyond property now. He looked at me seriously. This is a coordinated asset restructuring case. I exhaled slowly. So what happens now? He answered without hesitation. Now we trace every transaction. Every signature. Every approval. And every person involved. Inside the house, Nadia finally opened the door fully. But she didn't step out. She just stood there. Like she had already accepted that the boundary between inside and outside didn't matter anymore. Then she said something quietly. I didn't want it to end like this. I looked at her. And how did you want it to end? She hesitated. For me not to be powerless. That was the truth. Not greed. Not revenge. Fear of losing control. Inspector Cole stepped back toward his car. I'll escalate this immediately. Then he looked at me. And Mr. Harris? Yes? This is bigger than both of you now. He drove away. Slowly. Leaving the street even quieter than before. Now it was just me. And her. And the house that no longer felt like a home or a weapon. But like a record of decisions I was never part of. Nadia finally stepped outside. For the first time that night. Fully. She stood on the porch. Looking at me. Not as an opponent. Not as a winner. Just a person who had gone too far to turn back easily. I didn't want to destroy you, she said. I nodded slightly. I know. She frowned. That's it? I looked at her for a long moment. No. I think you just stopped seeing me as a person somewhere along the way. That landed differently. Because she didn't argue. Behind us, the house light flickered. The same house I built. The same house I paid for. Now reduced to paperwork and interpretation. My phone buzzed again. My lawyer. One-line message. We found something in your advisor's records. Meet me tomorrow. Don't trust anyone tonight. I looked at Nadia one last time. Then at the house. And finally understood the direction this was going. This was no longer about who lived inside the house. It was about who controlled the story of how it was built. And someone had been writing that story without me for a very long time. The name from my wedding. The room went completely silent after I read the name. Not normal silence. Not the kind that follows shock. The kind that feels like sound itself has been switched off. I read it once. Then again. And a third time. As if repetition could change reality. It didn't. My lawyer didn't speak immediately. He just watched me. Waiting for the moment it fully landed. Because the name on that screen was someone I had personally invited into my wedding. Someone who stood beside me on the most important day of my life. Someone who raised a glass and wished me a future he was already quietly interfering with. I finally spoke. No. My voice was low. Not denial. Disbelief trying to become logical. My lawyer exhaled. I hoped you'd say that. I looked up sharply. What does that mean? He hesitated. Then said. It means I double-checked it twice before showing it to you. That made it worse. Because it meant there was no mistake left to hide behind. I leaned back slowly in the chair. For the first time. This wasn't about Nadia. Or the house. Or the locks. This was about something deeper. Access to trust. Explain it to me clearly, I said. My lawyer nodded. He turned the screen again. Pointed. This person had early influence over your financial structuring. A pause. Even before your advisor took full control. I frowned. That's impossible. He shook his head. It's documented. He continued. They were present at key decision points. Loan approvals. Asset structuring suggestions. Even marital financial planning discussions. I felt something tighten in my chest. Not anger. Not yet. Pattern recognition. So what are you saying? I asked slowly. He answered carefully. I'm saying your system was never private. It was shared, from the beginning. That sentence reframed everything. Not betrayal. Architecture. Again. Inside my memory, things started shifting. Conversations I dismissed. Advice I accepted too easily. Suggestions that felt helpful at the time. All of it now looked different. Not malicious in isolation. But coordinated in sequence. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown message. This time just 4 words. Ask about the signature. I showed it to my lawyer. He frowned. I didn't send that. We opened the wedding-era financial file again. Scrolled deeper. Past the obvious. Past the expected. Until we reached a scanned document I had never paid attention to properly. A witness signature page. Multiple names. Standard formality. Or so I thought. But one signature line was highlighted by the system. Tagged. Verified. Repeated across multiple documents over the years. And it matched the name from the screen. The wedding guest. I stared at it for a long time. Then whispered. So he wasn't just present. My lawyer finished the sentence. He was validating the entire structure from the start. Silence again. Different silence this time. Not shock. Completion. Like a puzzle finally clicking into place. And suddenly, Nadia wasn't the center of this anymore. She was part of something that had already been moving before she even understood the direction. I stood up slowly. Walked to the window. Looked outside. The world looked normal again. That was the most disturbing part. Everything looked untouched. Even though my entire understanding of my life wasn't. My lawyer spoke behind me. What do you want to do next? I didn't answer immediately. Because for the first time, the question wasn't legal. It was personal. I turned back. Call everyone involved. He frowned. Everyone? I nodded. Every name. A pause. And bring them into one room. He hesitated. That's going to open everything at once. I looked at him. That's the point. Because now I understood something clearly. This was never going to end quietly. It had been built quietly. But it would end loudly. The final message came that evening. From the lawyer. Short. Simple. One line. They've agreed to meet. I stared at it for a long time. Then closed the phone. Because I already knew what came next. Not explanations. Not apologies. Not corrections. Confrontation. Full structure collapse. Truth without filters. And for the first time in this entire story, I wasn't outside the house anymore. I wasn't even inside it. I was standing at the center of everything that had been built around me. And it was finally about to break.